Take off. To leave everyday stress behind, to visit a faraway land, feel the touch of adventure, and give your spirit a chance to rediscover its true place in your being. All that is about to come true. We're flying to Tanzania, a country rich in sweeping landscapes and the unspoiled beauties of nature. The trip will take a few hours, but the excellent service on board and the in-flight entertainment will make that time simply an extended moment. Below us, the glowing lights of yet another foreign city pass by. Then, almost suddenly, the sun rises. Ahead of us in the early morning light, our destination. The United Republic of Tanzania, with its 25 million inhabitants and an area of over 945,000 square kilometers, lies south of the equator. The capital, Dar es Salaam, or Harbor of Freedom, is our gateway to Africa. Effortlessly and in comfort, we've reached this country which yesterday seemed so far away. These domino players and waiting passengers are proof that airports do not always have to be hectic. So we spontaneously adjust our personal metronomes to a gentler rhythm. The beauty of the beach on which our hotel is located is breathtaking, and just a few kilometers from the city itself. Local fishermen, the sand, the sun, and the immensity of the ocean. Exotic beauty and romantic atmosphere are one thing. The practicalities of life are another. We still have to guard against malaria, even though there are no mosquitoes in sight. But our travel agent and our physician have been very clear about this potential problem, and we certainly do not want to take any unnecessary risks. Early next morning, the appropriately named Kilimanjaro flies us to the north of Tanzania, closer to our destination. In the early afternoon, we arrive at Marangu, the point of departure for our trekking expedition. Marangu is a well-known market town in the region. It lies at 1,600 meters above sea level and has about 2,500 inhabitants. We gradually discover that we're the only outsiders in the district. We enjoy the privilege of being the guests at a truly unspoiled African market. Along a narrow path, we discover this idyllic waterfall. And the splendor of nature in the immediate vicinity of Marangu could not be more captivating. But it's time to find our accommodations. As yet, no five-star hotels have been built in Marangu. We do not miss them. Our guest house consists of a main building and several spacious bungalows in a park-like setting. Colorful bushes, trees in bloom, exotic songbirds, flowers of every color all tempt us to daydream. Because of its mild climate and fertile soil, Marangu has always flourished. Missionaries came and schools were founded and developed. Of course, education is centered on agriculture. It's traditional to cultivate corn, bananas, and highland coffee here. Another tradition in Marangu are church choirs. This white-capped mountain at the equator was first scaled on October 6, 1889. After two abortive attempts in which they suffered incredible hardship, the tenacious Leipzig geographer Hans Meyer and the Austrian mountain guide Ludwig Purcheler finally succeeded in reaching the peak of this 5,895-meter high extinct volcano, ably supported by members of the Chaga mountain tribe. Today, this snow-peaked giant on the equator is known to everyone. And since Kibo, as Kilimanjaro is also known, is easily accessible in terms of transportation, a dozen or more tourists embark on the path to the peak almost every day. But it's useful to remember that this climb isn't simply a stroll along a country lane. It is instead a 4-day climb along a 48-kilometer path to the peak, with a difference in altitude of about 4,000 meters. The first part, from Marangu to Mandara, is not very difficult. Erica Fanlani. Together with Mrs. Bennett, this legendary lady runs the Marangu Hotel. Born in Marangu, she herself has climbed to the summit several times. With energy and great attention to detail, She continues to organize every mountain safari booked with her. Erica Fanlani never fails to give a clear briefing to every trekking group before they leave, as well as useful tips to help them along the way. Anyone who wants to make it to the top will do well to listen to her advice.
Now, have you all got a water bottle? Yes. This is important. Have you all got a small hat, a khaki hat for the sun?
No.
No. How many have not? You get them later from the girl then. How many? I could send a message so she gets them ready. 3. At Kibo Hut, this is where you begin, you know, to feel sort of like. Some people feel fine, they enjoy their food, they can eat it. Others just look at it and they want to be sick. Your digestive system at Kibo Hut is very delicate. And that is why I tell people not to take any tablets or medicines that are really not necessary. From here, only the guides go with you. Some of them will have flasks of weak tea with lemon and sugar and biscuits along. Then from the hills onwards, this is the toughest bit on the whole mountain. And believe me, you look at each other, you haven't got enough wind to talk, but you hope the other feels worse than yourself. Fight on, you'll make it.
Always calm and friendly, she supervises the complex preparations with the eye of an experienced perfectionist. What she says counts, and the mountain guides and porters accept her instructions with respect. A final check upon arrival at the park gate. And after completing the formalities and paying the fees, we're finally ready. We pass by the commemorative plaque honoring Hans Meyer, enter the jungle, and start our ascent at a leisurely pace. Photography enthusiasts find a wonderful variety of beautiful subjects on this part of the route. Other easygoing trekkers calmly absorb and enjoy the many-faceted landscape. After about 5 hours, we reach the Mandara huts. Resembling a little village, these huts lie in an attractive jungle clearing, located at an altitude of 2,700 meters above sea level. There's an evening stillness in the air. The porters have laid down their burdens and chat together as they wait for the group of trekkers who gradually arrive. Every evening in the dark wooden kitchen, the Chaga cooks use the simplest means to prepare fresh and delicious meals for their hungry guests. Sunrise over the jungle. At precisely 6:30 in the morning, one of our guides wakes us with a gentle knock on the door, a cup of hot tea, and the welcome reminder that breakfast will be ready in a few minutes. Smoke from the cooking huts hints at the fried eggs, porridge, hot coffee, and tea that await us. Whether it's in the jungle at an altitude of 2,700 meters or at home, certain things still have to be done. Preparations are already being made for today's hike. The dishes are washed, and along with our personal effects are again packed into the huge familiar bags to be transported. We're full of energy and eager to be off. We look forward to today's hike, although it's somewhat longer than yesterday's, from Mandara up to Harombo.
Schaffhausen hat der Mengenstreu gemacht, oder?
Ja, natürlich.
Vor allem, was der Köpfe
Ja, richtig, jetzt hat ja Lugano wieder rausgefällt.
After about 3 hours of walking, the landscape changes again. The path leads us continuously up and down through small, steep valleys. However, lunch provides us with renewed energy. Gaudens, the second and still very young mountain guide, keeps a careful watch over his guests. Soon we resume our leisurely pace. Innumerable thistles, also called Kilimanjaro Edelweiss, now decorate the edge of the path. In the sky, cloud formations constantly change, driven by a mountain wind which is already somewhat chilly. Then we come across the first senecios. These plants that live so long, botanists claim they can reach an age of 200 years, unfortunately have become an endangered species. We hope that they will survive on Mount Kilimanjaro. Lost in these thoughts, we hike on uphill along the dusty path. Then finally, around 4 o'clock, we cross a small hill and see Horombo for the first time. Here, too, the collection of huts resembles a small village. A village lying at a very high altitude, because now we find ourselves at 3,780 meters above sea level. A new team to relieve the mountain rescue crew stationed here arrives at the same time as we do. Other rescue units maintain permanent watch at the Marangu Gate and higher up at the Kibo hut. They all remain in contact with each other through solar-powered radio sets and can thus coordinate a rescue if necessary. While one of the porters prepares the wood we brought with us from farther down the mountain, our cooks, surrounded by smoke, are in action again. Rice, potatoes, eggs, and vegetables, but also live chickens which have been brought along, have to be prepared for dinner. Now the last hikers slowly arrive and install their belongings in the huts. Others, however, are already hungrily waiting for dinner in front of the dining room. Appetites are keen up here, and we need to build up our reserves of energy. We remember Erica von Lanny's advice and follow it to the letter. After all, every one of us wants to reach our objective, almost 6,000 meters high. Twilight. In pleasant company, we welcome the lengthening shadows as another day draws to a close. It's that time again. We're packing up our things in Harombo. The day we spent here to acclimatize ourselves has done us a lot of good. We leave refreshed. Now we're literally drawn onward to Kibo. Gabriele and Gaudens recognize how the mountain pulls us upwards. That's why they already warned us at breakfast. Pole, pole, they said, and they were serious. Always take it easy. That advice is essential for tourists, not for the hardy porters. Despite their heavy loads, they go ahead as quickly as they like. According to our trekking plan, we have a pretty strenuous day ahead of us. Not so much because of the distance, but rather because we'll be moving up to high altitudes, to which we're unaccustomed.
Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro, Limamre Pusana. Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro, Limamre Pusana. Namawenzi, Namawenzi, Namawenzi. Namawenzi, Limamre Pusana. Namawenzi, Namawenzi, Namawenzi. Namawenzi, Limamre Pusana. Ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka. Ewe nyoka, mbona wanizunguka. Wanizunguka, wanizunguka, wanizunguka. Wanizunguka, wataka kunila nyama. Ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka. Ewe nyoka, mbona wanizunguka. Wanizunguka, wanizunguka, wanizunguka. Wanizunguka, wataka kunila nyama.
It's noon. We take an extended break, even though we all still feel quite fresh. But we know that we're using our reserves of strength at these heights. We also know that during the coming night, squeezed together in the confines of the Kibo hut at a height of 4,750 meters, there'll be no use in even thinking of sleep. Drinking fluids, even drinking a lot of fluids, is important now, even if you don't feel thirsty. Whoever pays too little attention to this factor will diminish his or her chances of reaching the summit. So let's enjoy this break and bask in the warmth of the sunshine. There's a hard time ahead. Next to us, our Chaga porters are also resting. Our respect for these warm-hearted people grows continuously. We now are also very aware of how little materially they have to make do with, despite their hard work. This is the last spring. That means the water we need for the next 2 days will have to be taken along from here. A little later, the terrain is barren, like a desert. Gabriele, he's 56 years young, incidentally, leads the way at a measured pace. Now there no longer is any need for a pole-pole warning. The 4,200-meter altitude automatically dictates our speed. On the edge of the path, the last flowers are blown by the wind. On our right, Mount Mawenzi. We feel that we could almost reach out and touch it. Meanwhile, the eternal battle between wind and clouds has broken out on its peaks. After a good 3 hours of hiking, we reach the saddle and look, fascinated at the legendary high plateau, a stony, empty place, completely devoid of life. Awed, we regard our still distant goal. The icy, glimmering crown of Kilimanjaro appears majestic. So that's where we dare to climb tonight, to the top of that enormous mountain. How will this altitude, to which we are unaccustomed, affect us? This question arises within us all. It does not arise for Gabriele. No one can match his knowledge of this terrain and how people react to it. But we feel quite insignificant in this awesome and beautiful wasteland. Other trekkers far in the distance heighten this feeling. 2 hours later, we reach the Kibo hut. We are now at 4,750 meters. We cast a last glance at Mount Mawenzi and hope to greet it from above in the early light of dawn. Then, night falls. And in our thoughts, we doubt. We're already on our way to the summit. But will we make it? Dawn's first light at Gilman's Point at a height of 5,680 meters. After 4 hours of climbing in the deep dark of night, we sit down, out of breath on the lava, and gaze in wonder at the ethereal beauty of the sunrise. Black rock, glittering ice, we all agree. Every breath, every step it took to come up here was worth it. We do feel tiny, but we are filled with life, and we're free. Still a bit more to go. Another 215 meters until we reach the summit. The 5,895 meter high Uhuru Peak. And so we walk very slowly through the wonderful, stony and icy landscape toward the mountain top. A gentle sound in the sky. An airliner elegantly passes the mountain peak. We think of the Swiss pioneer aviator Walter Mittelholzer. He was the first to fly over Kilimanjaro. That was on January 8, 1930.
Right away.
A few days later, we fly home. At a certain moment, Kilimanjaro appears below. A matter of curiosity for most of the passengers. Not for us. Kwaheri Kibo. We shall return.